The fluorescent lights hummed above me like angry wasps, each flicker sending sharp needles of pain through my skull. I blinked slowly, trying to make sense of the sterile white ceiling, the antiseptic smell that burned my nostrils, the thin sheets scratching against my skin. Everything felt wrong, disconnected, like I was watching my own life through a fog. Where was I? My body ached in places I didn't know could ache. My right arm throbbed beneath heavy bandages, and when I tried to move my leg, a sharp pain shot through my hip, stealing my breath. I gasped, and the sound echoed in the quiet room, too loud, too vulnerable. Easy now. A nurse appeared beside me, her face kind but tired, dark circles beneath her eyes suggesting a long shift. You've been in an accident, sweetheart. A car hit you on Fifth Avenue. You're lucky to be alive. Lucky. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. I wasn't lucky. I was never lucky. Lucky people didn't work 3 jobs to pay for a cramped studio apartment with water stains on the ceiling. Lucky people didn't skip meals so they could afford to keep the electricity on. Lucky people didn't get hit by cars while rushing to their night shift at the diner because the bus was late, and Mr. Peterson threatened to fire anyone who showed up late again. How long? My voice came out raspy, broken. 2 days. You've been unconscious for 2 days. She adjusted my IV with practiced efficiency. The doctor will be in soon to check on you. We ran some tests while you were out. Standard procedure. Tests. My stomach twisted. Tests meant money. Money I didn't have. I can't afford... I started. But she shook her head, a strange expression crossing her face. It's been taken care of, she said quietly, almost nervously. Everything. Your bills, your treatment, everything. The fog in my brain thickened. What? By who? But she was already moving toward the door, her steps quick, almost hurried. The doctor will explain everything. Just rest. Rest. As if I could rest with this knot of anxiety twisting tighter in my chest. I turned my head, slowly, because even that small movement made the room spin, and noticed for the first time that this wasn't a regular hospital room. The space was too large, too private. Real art hung on the walls instead of cheap prints. A leather chair sat in the corner, expensive and out of place. Through the window, I could see the city sprawled below, too far below for a standard floor. Something was very wrong. The door opened again, and this time it was a doctor, his white coat pristine, his expression professionally neutral. But behind him stood a man in a dark suit, his presence filling the doorway like a shadow. Not the doctor's shadow, something else entirely. Miss Reeves, the doctor said, pulling my attention back. I'm Dr. Morrison. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a car, I managed, trying to inject some humor into the situation. But it fell flat. He smiled sympathetically and pulled up my chart on a tablet. You're healing well, all things considered. Fractured wrist, bruised ribs, mild concussion. You were very fortunate. That word again. Fortunate. But there's something else we need to discuss. He glanced at the man in the doorway, who remained perfectly still, and I felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. During our examination, we performed a routine ultrasound to check for internal injuries. My heart began to pound, a sick feeling spreading through my stomach. Miss Reeves, you're pregnant, approximately 8 weeks. The words hit me harder than the car had. Pregnant? No. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, flat and unchanged beneath the hospital gown. 8 weeks. I counted backward, my mind racing, landing on a night I'd been trying desperately to forget. Marcus. His promises, his lies, the way he'd disappeared the morning after with my grandmother's necklace, the only thing of value I owned, and $300 I'd saved for rent. That's impossible, I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. The exhaustion I'd blamed on working too much. The nausea I'd attributed to skipping meals. The way my uniform had felt tighter around my waist. God, I was so stupid. I need to go. I tried to sit up, ignoring the way the room tilted dangerously. I can't afford this. I can't afford any of this. Miss Reeves, please. Dr. Morrison reached out to steady me, but another hand got there first. The man from the doorway moved with liquid grace, crossing the room in 3 silent strides. His hand, warm, strong, with calloused fingers that spoke of violence rather than paperwork, pressed gently against my shoulder, guiding me back down. "Don't move," he said, and his voice was like expensive whiskey, smooth and dark and dangerous. "You'll hurt yourself." I looked up at him for the first time, really looked, and my breath caught in my throat. He was beautiful in the way that storms are beautiful, powerful, destructive, mesmerizing. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and strong lines. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than everything I'd ever owned combined, but it was his eyes that trapped me. Dark, intelligent, predatory eyes that seemed to see straight through my skin to every secret I'd ever kept. A thin scar ran along his jaw. A mark of violence survived. The scent of him washed over me, expensive cologne layered over something else, something darker. Gunpowder, maybe. Leather. Danger. "Who are you?" The question came out barely above a whisper. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Someone who paid for the car that hit you." My blood turned to ice. "What?" "The driver works for me." He said it so casually, as if he was discussing the weather. "A regrettable accident. He was distracted, ran a red light. You stepped into the crosswalk at precisely the wrong moment." I should have been angry, terrified. Something. But all I could feel was confusion, as his gaze dropped to where my hand still rested protectively over my stomach. "Dr. Morrison, may I see the ultrasound?" His voice remained calm, but there was something underneath it now, something that made the doctor move immediately, fumbling with the tablet. "Of course, Mr. Volkov." The name echoed in my head, familiar in the way that nightmares are familiar. I'd heard it whispered in the diner during late-night shifts, seen it in newspaper headlines quickly hidden when managers walked by. The Volkov family, Russian organized crime, power, money, violence wrapped in expensive suits and political donations, and one of them was standing in my hospital room, staring at an ultrasound of my baby with an expression I couldn't read. The silence stretched too long, his jaw clenched, a muscle ticking beneath that scarred skin. His fingers tightened around the tablet until I thought it might crack. 8 weeks, he said finally, his accent thickening slightly around the words. "Yes," Dr. Morrison confirmed, oblivious to the sudden tension. "A healthy pregnancy so far, despite the accident." Volkov's dark eyes lifted from the screen to my face, and in them I saw something that made my heart stop. Recognition. "What's the father's name?" His voice was too quiet, too controlled. I swallowed hard. "I don't see how that's any of your business." "His name." Not a question anymore. A command. "Marcus," I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded. "Marcus Chen." Something dangerous flickered across his face. He handed the tablet back to Dr. Morrison without looking away from me. "Leave us." "Mr. Volkov, I really should." "Now." The doctor left so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. We were alone. Volkov moved closer, and I pressed back into the pillows, my heart hammering against my ribs. He reached out slowly, as if approaching a frightened animal, and his fingers brushed against my cheek with unexpected gentleness. "Marcus Chen," he repeated, and now I could hear the fury beneath the calm. Mid-20s, works the docks, fancies himself a player in a game far above his level. "How do you—" He stole from me. The words were ice. 3 weeks ago, someone skimmed 200,000 from a shipment. Traced it back to Chen. Been looking for him ever since. His thumb traced along my jaw, and I shivered. Imagine my surprise when my driver hits a woman. I come to handle the situation personally and find out she's carrying the child of a dead man walking. Dead man walking. Oh, God. "He left," I said quickly, desperately. "After that night, he left. I don't know where he is. I swear." "I know you don't." His voice softened slightly. "You're not a criminal, Mira Reeves. You're a waitress who works too hard, sleeps too little, and trusted the wrong man. The fact that he knew my name, knew my life, should have terrified me. It did terrify me, but I was too exhausted, too overwhelmed, too pregnant to properly process the nightmare I'd stumbled into. "What do you want from me?" He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching my face as if looking for something specific. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, and turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of Marcus, laughing, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. She was beautiful, tall, elegant, everything I wasn't, and she was very, very pregnant. 6 months along, Volkov said. His wife. They've been married for 3 years. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Wife. He had a wife, had a baby on the way, and I was going to be sick. "I'm sorry," I choked out, though I didn't know what I was apologizing for existing, for being stupid enough to believe someone like Marcus could want someone like me. Volkov's expression shifted, something almost like sympathy crossing his features before hardening back into steel. Don't apologize for his sins. He slipped his phone back into his pocket and straightened, and I thought he was going to leave. Thought this nightmare would end with him walking out the door and me trying to figure out how to survive as a single mother with no money, no family, and no future. But he didn't leave. Instead, he pulled a card from his jacket, heavy, expensive cardstock with embossed lettering, and placed it on the table beside my bed. "You'll stay here until you're healed, then my driver will take you to a new apartment. Furnished, paid for 6 months in advance. There's a job waiting at one of my legitimate businesses, a gallery in Midtown. Easy work, good pay, benefits." I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. "Why would you do that?" His smile was cold, predatory. "Because Marcus Chen owes me a debt he can never repay. But his child," his gaze dropped to my stomach again, "is innocent. I don't want your charity. It's not charity." He leaned down, close enough that I could feel his breath against my ear, smell that dangerous scent of cologne and violence. "Consider it an investment. You'll take my help, Mira. You'll accept the apartment, the job, the protection. Because the alternative is trying to survive on your own, while every enemy I have learns that Marcus Chen's child exists. I'm not his... You carry his blood. That's enough." He pulled back, and his expression was granite. "The world I live in doesn't forgive innocent mistakes. But I do. Sometimes." He turned toward the door, and panic surged through me. "Wait." He paused, looking back over his shoulder. "What's your name? Your first name?" For a moment I didn't think he'd answer. Then, "Dmitri." "Dmitri," I repeated, tasting the syllables. "What do you get out of this? Really?" His smile was like a blade, beautiful and lethal. "That," he said softly, "remains to be seen." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving me alone with the scent of expensive cologne, the weight of an unwanted pregnancy, and a business card that felt like a contract with the devil himself. I picked up the card with shaking fingers. Dmitri Volkov, private number. Below the embossed text, someone had written in dark ink, "Call me when you're ready to live." Outside my window, the city lights glittered like broken glass, and somewhere in that sprawling darkness, Marcus Chen was running from a debt he'd never escape. And I, broken, pregnant, terrified, was now tangled in the web of the most dangerous man in the city. The worst part? Some small, desperate part of me wanted to call that number, wanted to accept whatever dark bargain Dmitri Volkov was offering. Because for the first time in my life, someone was offering me a choice that wasn't between bad and worse. He was offering me survival, and I was just desperate enough to take it. 3 days later, I stood in the lobby of Metropolitan General Hospital, my belongings stuffed into a plastic bag. A stained waitress uniform, a broken phone, a wallet with $17 and a maxed-out credit card. Everything I owned in the world fit in something designed to hold garbage. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dr. Morrison had cleared me that morning, his professional smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Remember to take it easy, Miss Reeves. No strenuous activity for at least 2 weeks. And schedule an appointment with an OB/GYN as soon as possible." An OB/GYN. For a baby I hadn't planned, couldn't afford, didn't know if I even wanted. but the card in my pocket felt like it was burning through the thin fabric of the hospital-issued sweatpants they'd given me since my jeans had been cut off in the emergency room. "Call me when you're ready to live," I hadn't called. Hadn't touched the card since that first night, as if avoiding it would somehow make this entire situation disappear. Maybe I'd wake up and discover the accident. Dmitry Volkov. All of it had been some elaborate, concussion-induced hallucination, but the bruises covering my skin were real. The ache in my ribs was real, and the nausea rolling through me had nothing to do with my injuries. Miss Reeves? I turned to find a man in a black suit standing near the automatic doors. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had been broken and rebuilt several times. His eyes swept the lobby with professional efficiency before settling on me. "I'm Victor. Mr. Volkov sent me to drive you home." Home. As if I had one of those. "I didn't call him," I said, clutching my plastic bag tighter. Victor's expression didn't change. "He doesn't require your call to know when you're being discharged. The car is outside." Of course it was. Because men like Dmitry Volkov didn't ask permission. They simply arranged the world to suit their needs. I should have refused. Should have walked out those doors and disappeared into the city, found some shelter, figured it out on my own like I always had. But my wrist throbbed in its cast. My body screamed with exhaustion. And somewhere deep in my belly, cells were dividing and multiplying into something that would depend entirely on me. I was so tired of fighting alone. "Fine," I whispered. Victor nodded once and gestured toward the exit. "This way." The car waiting at the curb wasn't just expensive, it was obscene. A black Mercedes S-Class with windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. Victor opened the rear door, and the leather interior released a wave of cool air that smelled like money. I climbed in awkwardly, my injured body protesting every movement, and froze. Dmitry Volkov sat in the opposite seat, perfectly still, his dark suit immaculate, his attention focused on a tablet in his hands. He didn't look up as Victor closed the door and took his position in the driver's seat. "I could have taken a cab," I said, hating how my voice shook. "No, you couldn't have." Now he looked up, and those predatory eyes pinned me in place. "You have $17 and no home to return to. Your landlord changed the locks 3 days ago when you missed rent. Your belongings are in a storage unit you can't access without payment." The humiliation burned through me like acid. "You had someone go through my things?" "I had someone protect your things." He set the tablet aside. "Everything you own is now in a secure location. You'll have access once you're settled." "Settled where?" His smile was slight, controlled. "Patience, Mira." The car pulled away from the curb with liquid smoothness, merging into traffic. I watched the hospital disappear behind us, along with any illusion that I still controlled my own life. We drove in silence through the city, and I tried not to notice how Victor's eyes constantly scanned the mirrors, how other cars seemed to give us a wide berth, how people on the sidewalks instinctively looked away as we passed. This wasn't just a car. It was a declaration of power. Finally, we turned onto a tree-lined street I'd only ever seen in magazines. Brownstone buildings stood shoulder to shoulder, their facades pristine, their windows glowing with warm light. Doormen in uniform stood at attention. Women in yoga pants that cost more than my monthly salary walked small dogs with diamond collars. This wasn't my world. Would never be my world. "There's been a mistake," I said, as Victor pulled up in front of a particularly beautiful building. "I can't afford—" "You're not paying for it." Dmitry was already out of the car, moving around to open my door before Victor could. He offered his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. His grip was firm, steady, and impossibly warm. He helped me out carefully, aware of my injuries in a way that should have been comforting, but instead felt like being studied by a predator deciding where to bite. The lobby was all marble and brass, with a chandelier that probably cost more than I'd earn in 10 years. The doorman nodded respectfully at Dmitry. Not the professional smile he'd give a resident, but something deeper. Fear, maybe, or reverence. "Mr. Volkov. Good to see you, sir. Martin. This is Miss Reeves. She'll be in 4B. Add her to the approved list. No visitors without her explicit permission." "Of course, sir." We took an elevator with mirrors on every surface, and I tried not to look at my reflection. bruised, exhausted, wearing clothes that screamed charity case. Next to Dimitri's polished perfection, I looked like something the city had chewed up and spit out, which I supposed was exactly what I was. The elevator opened directly into an apartment, and I stepped out into a space that stole what little breath I had left. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that belonged in movies, not real life. The furniture was modern but comfortable, all soft grays and creams. Real art hung on the walls. The kitchen gleamed with appliances I didn't know how to use. Through an open door, I could see a bedroom with a bed so large it looked like an island. "This is insane," I whispered. Dimitri moved past me, checking the windows with practiced efficiency, his body language shifting into something more alert. "The building has excellent security. Victor will be assigned to you, along with 2 others who will rotate shifts. You won't see them unless necessary, but they'll be close." "I don't need bodyguards." He turned to face me, and his expression was granite. "Marcus Chen stole from me. When my people find him, and they will, he'll try to bargain. The only leverage he has is you and that child." My hand moved instinctively to my stomach. "He doesn't even know I'm pregnant. He will." Dimitri closed the distance between us in 2 strides. "Men like him always find out, and when he does, he'll either try to use you as a shield or sell you to my enemies as a prize. Either way, you need protection. I'm nothing to you. Why do you even care?" His jaw clenched, that muscle ticking again. For a long moment, he just stared at me, something dark and complicated moving behind his eyes. Then he reached out and traced a finger along the bruise on my cheekbone, so gently I barely felt it. "You want the truth?" His voice was low, dangerous. "That ultrasound. The timing. 8 weeks ago, Marcus was still working for me, still in my territory, under my protection. Which means he got you pregnant while under my roof, then stole from me and ran, leaving you to face the consequences alone. That's not your fault. In my world, everything that happens in my territory is my responsibility." His fingers moved from my cheek to my jaw, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. "He dishonored you under my protection. That makes it my problem to fix. I'm not a problem that needs fixing." His smile was sharp enough to cut. "No. You're something far more complicated than that." He pulled away, moving toward the door, and panic fluttered in my chest. I didn't want him here. Didn't want to feel this strange pull toward someone so dangerous, but I also didn't want to be alone in this beautiful cage. "There's a phone on the counter," he said without looking back. "My number is programmed. Food will be delivered 3 times a day. The gallery job starts when you're ready, no rush. A doctor will visit tomorrow to check on you and the baby. Dimitri..." He paused at the elevator, his hand on the button. "Why are you really doing this?" For the first time since I'd met him, his mask slipped. Just for a second, I saw something raw and broken beneath the polished exterior. Because 10 years ago, someone I cared about was pregnant and afraid, and I wasn't powerful enough to protect her. His voice was barely above a whisper. By the time I found her, she was dead, and so was the child. I've spent every day since making sure I'm never powerless again. The elevator doors opened, and he stepped inside, his mask sliding back into place. "Rest, Mira. You're safe now." The doors closed, and I was alone in an apartment that felt like a museum, with a phone number that felt like a chain, and a baby growing inside me that connected me to 2 men who lived in a world of violence I'd never understand. I sank onto the couch and finally let myself cry. 2 weeks passed in a blur of doctor's visits, meal deliveries, and careful healing. The bruises faded from purple to yellow. My wrist itched beneath the cast. And every morning, I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and pastries left outside my door by invisible hands. Victor was a constant presence, not intrusive, but always there. A shadow in the lobby, a figure in the car when I needed to go somewhere. He didn't talk much, but his presence was oddly comforting. The doctor who visited was kind, professional, and clearly accustomed to treating people who valued discretion. She confirmed that the baby was healthy, prescribed prenatal vitamins, and didn't ask any uncomfortable questions about the father. I should have felt grateful, safe, provided for. Instead, I felt like a bird in a gilded cage. And the man who held the key hadn't called once, not that I wanted him to call, except some nights, when the apartment felt too big and too empty. I'd find myself staring at that phone, wondering what would happen if I pressed his number. On the 16th day, I finally left the apartment for more than a doctor's appointment. The gallery Dmitri had mentioned was in Midtown, tucked between a high-end restaurant and a law firm. The sign read, Volkov Fine Arts, in elegant script, and when I pushed through the door, a bell chimed softly. The interior was all white walls and perfect lighting, showcasing paintings and sculptures that probably cost more than most people earned in a year. A woman in her 50s looked up from behind a sleek desk, her smile warm and genuine. "You must be Mira. I'm Catherine. Mr. Volkov told me to expect you." She came around the desk, moving with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in her own skin. "How are you feeling?" "I heard about the accident." "Better," I managed, suddenly self-conscious in my thrift store clothes among all this carefully curated beauty. Good. Come, let me show you around." The job is simple. Greet visitors, answer basic questions, coordinate with the curator when serious buyers arrive. Nothing too strenuous. She led me through the gallery, pointing out various pieces. We're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6. Closed Sundays and Mondays. Pay is $25 an hour, plus commission on any sales you facilitate. $25 an hour. I'd been making $8.50 at the diner. "That's too much," I said automatically. Catherine laughed. "Mr. Volkov values quality employees. And between you and me, he owes me a favor. I've been asking for an assistant for months." Something about the way she said it, casual, honest, made me relax slightly. This wasn't just a pity job, it was real. "When do I start?" "Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow? Next week? You set the pace." "Tomorrow," I heard myself say. "I'll start tomorrow." That night, I sat in my expensive apartment, eating takeout that had been delivered by someone I never saw, and tried to plan a future I couldn't quite picture. Single mother, gallery assistant, protected by a man who moved through the world like a storm. The phone rang. Not the landline that various doctors and delivery people used. The cell phone Dmitri had left, the one programmed with only his number. My heart hammered as I picked it up. "Hello. Victor tells me you visited the gallery today." His voice was like dark chocolate, rich and dangerous. "Are you satisfied with the arrangement?" "It's more than I deserve." "You deserve far more than you've ever been given." A pause. "How are you feeling?" "Fine. The doctor says everything is progressing normally." "Good." Another pause, longer this time. I could hear something in the background, voices, maybe music. Wherever he was, it wasn't quiet. "I need to ask you something, Mira, and I need you to answer honestly." My throat tightened. "Okay. Do you want this baby?" The question hit like a fist to the stomach. "What?" "It's a simple question. I'll support whatever choice you make, but I need to know. Do you want to be a mother?" I opened my mouth to give him the answer I thought he wanted, but what came out was the truth. I don't know. I never had a family. Don't know how to be one, but when I think about not having it... My voice broke. "I can't imagine that either." "Then you have your answer." His voice softened almost imperceptibly. "Fear doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you care enough to be afraid." "Is that what your mother told you?" "My mother died when I was 6. But it's what I wish she could have said." The vulnerability in that admission stole my breath. "Dmitri, I have to go. But Mira, you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." He ended the call before I could respond, leaving me alone with a phone pressed to my ear and tears running down my face. Outside my window, the city lights blazed against the darkness. And somewhere out there, Dmitri Volkov moved through his dangerous world, carrying secrets I was only beginning to understand. I placed my hand over my still flat stomach and whispered to the tiny life growing inside me, "I'll figure this out. I promise. We'll be okay." I just wished I believed it. 6 weeks transformed my life in ways I couldn't have imagined. The gallery became my sanctuary. I learned to speak the language of art collectors, to recognize the difference between genuine interest and wealthy browsers killing time. Catherine treated me like a protégé rather than an assistant, teaching me about the pieces, the artists, the delicate dance of negotiation that turned admiration into acquisition. My body changed too. The bruises disappeared completely. The cast came off my wrist, and my stomach, no longer flat, began to curve outward in a way that made everything feel suddenly, terrifyingly real. I was going to be a mother. The thought still paralyzed me some nights. But during the day, surrounded by beauty and purpose, I could almost convince myself I was strong enough for this. Dmitri remained a ghost. He never visited the gallery, never called again after that one vulnerable conversation. But his presence was everywhere, in the security detail that followed me discreetly, in the apartment that waited warm and safe, in the way certain customers treated me with deference when they learned I worked for Mr. Volkov's establishment. I told myself I didn't miss him. I told myself I didn't scan the street every morning hoping to see that black Mercedes. I told myself the disappointment that twisted in my chest when another day passed without contact was just hormones. I was a very good liar. It was a Thursday afternoon in mid-November when everything changed. The gallery was quiet, the gray light filtering through the windows matching the sleet falling outside. Catherine had left early for a dentist appointment, trusting me to close up. I was updating inventory in the back office when the bell chimed. "I'll be right there," I called, saving the spreadsheet and standing carefully. At 14 weeks pregnant, sudden movements made me dizzy. I walked out into the gallery and stopped dead. Marcus Chen stood in the center of the room, staring at a painting he'd never appreciate, wearing clothes that looked slept in. He'd lost weight, his cheekbones too sharp, his eyes haunted. When he turned and saw my stomach, his face went white. "Mira?" I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My hand instinctively covered the small bump as if I could hide it. "What are you doing here?" My voice came out steady, which was a miracle considering my heart was trying to break through my ribs. I didn't know where else to go. He took a step toward me, and I took one back. He noticed, and something like pain crossed his face. "I heard you were working here. I just wanted to see you, to explain." "Explain what? That you're married? That you stole from me and disappeared? That you took the only thing of value I owned and left me with nothing?" The words poured out like poison. "Which part needs explaining, Marcus?" "All of it. None of it." He ran a hand through his hair, and I noticed his fingers trembling. "I never meant to hurt you. That night it was real. You were real. But I was in so much trouble, Mira. These people I owed money to, they were going to kill me. I needed cash fast, and I thought, you thought you'd rob the woman you slept with." I laughed, but it sounded broken. "Very chivalrous. I didn't know about the baby. How could you? You were gone before sunrise." His eyes dropped to my stomach again, and something desperate moved across his face. "Is it mine?" The question felt like a slap. Who else's would it be? "I don't know. I heard you were working for the Volkovs now, living in one of Dmitri's buildings." "People talk, Mira. People say a lot of things." I cut him off, my voice ice. "Most of it's lies. But yes, Marcus, it's yours. Biologically, anyway. In every way that matters, this baby has nothing to do with you." He moved closer, and this time I couldn't back up. The desk pressed against my spine. "Let me help. Let me be there for you. For the baby. I made mistakes, but I can fix this. We can be a family. You have a family." The words tasted like ash. "A wife. Another baby on the way." "That's complicated." "No, it's really not." I tried to step around him, but he caught my arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. "Let go. Mira, please. Listen to me. The people I stole from, they're not going to stop looking. And if they find out about you, about the baby, they already know." The voice came from the gallery entrance, cold and lethal. Dmitri stood in the doorway, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He looked different than I remembered, sharper, harder, like a blade fresh from the forge. His black coat was spotted with sleet, his hair slightly disheveled, but his eyes were what stopped my heart. Dark, focused, burning with barely contained rage. Behind him, Victor materialized like a shadow, his hand resting casually inside his jacket where I knew he kept a gun. Marcus's grip on my arm loosened, and he stepped back, his face draining of color. "Mr. Volkov, I was just touching something that doesn't belong to you." Dmitri moved into the gallery with that liquid grace, and I noticed Marcus actually trembled. "That seems to be a pattern with you, Chen. I wasn't going to hurt her. I just wanted to talk. And now you've talked." Dmitri stopped 3 feet away, and the space between them crackled with violence. "Leave. If I ever see you near her again, if I even hear your name in the same sentence as hers, I'll forget that she's asked me to show mercy." Marcus's eyes snapped to mine. "You asked him. I didn't want you dead," I said quietly. "That doesn't mean I want you here." Something broke behind Marcus's eyes. For just a second, I saw the man I thought I'd known. Scared, desperate, human. Then he straightened, trying to salvage some dignity. "Fine, I'll go. But Mira, if you ever need anything, she won't." Dimitri's voice could have cut glass. "Victor will escort you out. If you're smart, you'll leave the city tonight. Disappear, because my patience has limits, and you've nearly exceeded them." Victor stepped forward, and Marcus had no choice but to move toward the door. He looked back at me once, his expression pleading, but I turned away. I couldn't look at him anymore. The bell chimed as the door closed, and then it was just me and Dmitri in a gallery full of expensive silence. "Are you hurt?" His voice had changed, losing that lethal edge. "No, he didn't. He just grabbed my arm." Dmitri was beside me in an instant, his fingers gently lifting my sleeve to check for bruises. His touch was careful, clinical, but my skin burned where he made contact. "I should have killed him months ago," he said softly, almost to himself. "I'm glad you didn't." He looked up, and our faces were suddenly too close. Close enough that I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to smell his cologne mixed with winter air. "Why?" The word was barely a whisper. "He hurt you, used you, left you alone, because killing him wouldn't change any of that." I pulled my arm back, needing distance from his intensity. "It would just make you the same as him." His laugh was bitter. "Mira, I am so much worse than Marcus Chen could ever dream of being. I don't believe that." "Then you're naive. Or maybe you're more than you let yourself be." We stared at each other, the air between us charged with something dangerous, something I didn't want to name. Then Dmitri stepped back, his mask sliding into place. "Victor will take you home. No more working alone. Catherine stays until closing, or you leave early. You can't rearrange my entire life just because I can, and I will." His voice was steel again. "Marcus knows about the baby now. That changes everything. My enemies will hear within hours. You're no longer just a woman I'm protecting. You're a potential target. I'm not your responsibility." "Yes, you are." The words exploded out of him, raw and furious. "You became my responsibility the moment my driver hit you, and you became something more the moment I saw that ultrasound and realized that bastard had gotten you pregnant while under my protection." "Something more?" I whispered. "What does that mean?" He opened his mouth, then closed it, visibly wrestling with something. Finally, "It means I won't let anyone hurt you. Not Marcus, not my enemies, not anyone. You're under my protection, Mira, whether you want it or not. And if I say no, if I want to leave, live my own life," his expression was agony, "then I'll let you go. But I'll still keep you safe from the shadows. You'll never see me again, but you'll never be unprotected." The choice he was offering wasn't a choice at all. It was an illusion of freedom wrapped around an iron cage. And the most terrifying part, I didn't want to leave. "Why do you care so much?" The question tore out of me. "Really? Is it just guilt? Responsibility? Or is there something else?" He moved closer again, and this time I didn't back away. His hand came up, cupping my cheek with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him. "You want honesty?" His thumb traced my lower lip, and I shivered. "I don't know. I've spent 6 weeks trying to stay away, trying to convince myself that setting you up and leaving you alone was enough. But every report Victor gives me, every update on the baby, every time I drive past this gallery," his jaw clenched, You've gotten under my skin, Mira Reeves, and I don't know what to do about it. Dmitri, Mr. Volkov? Victor's voice crackled through Dmitri's earpiece, loud enough for me to hear. We have a situation. Dmitri's entire demeanor changed, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the lethal crime boss. What kind of situation? Marcus Chen is dead, shot 3 blocks from here. Whoever did it is sending you a message. My stomach dropped. Oh God. Dmitri's hand tightened on my shoulder. Get her to the car. Now, full security protocol. Victor appeared in the doorway, his gun now visible. Miss Reeves, we need to go. But Catherine, the gallery is already being secured. Dmitri was moving toward the back exit, pulling his own weapon from beneath his coat with practiced ease. You're going to a safe house, tonight. Pack whatever you need from the apartment, then we disappear. Disappear where? He looked back at me, and his eyes were storm dark. Somewhere my enemies can't reach. Somewhere I can keep you safe while I handle this. Handle what? Dmitri, what's happening? War. The word was simple. Final. Someone just declared war on me by killing Marcus in my territory. And they did it knowing you'd be nearby, knowing it would scare you. It worked, I whispered. His expression softened for just a second. I know. That's why we're leaving. He nodded to Victor. Take her through the back. I'll meet you at the safe house. You're not coming with us? I have to deal with the body, talk to my people, find out who's bold enough to make a move like this. He holstered his gun and caught my hand, squeezing once. Trust me, Mira. I'll keep you safe. Then he was gone, moving through the gallery like a shadow. And Victor was guiding me toward a door I'd never noticed before. Come, Miss Reeves. Quickly now. I followed in a daze, my mind trying to process everything. Marcus was dead. Someone had killed him, probably the same people he'd stolen from. And they'd done it knowing I was connected to Dmitri. I was in the middle of a gang war, pregnant, powerless, and completely dependent on a man who dealt in violence and death. Victor led me through a maintenance corridor, downstairs that smelled like concrete and fear, and out into an alley where another black car waited, its engine already running. Inside, he said, his eyes constantly scanning the shadows. I climbed in, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the door handle. The car pulled away from the curb, merging into traffic, and I looked back through the tinted window at the gallery, that brief sanctuary of beauty and normalcy disappearing behind us. Marcus was dead, and I was carrying his child into a war I didn't understand. The baby kicked for the first time, just a flutter, like butterfly wings against my insides, and I pressed my hand to my stomach. It's okay, I whispered, though I didn't know if I was talking to the baby or myself. We'll be okay. Dmitri won't let anything happen to us. But as the car raced through the darkening streets toward an unknown destination, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. I wasn't just under Dmitri Volkov's protection anymore, I was his. The safe house was a fortress disguised as a luxury cabin. We'd driven for 3 hours into the mountains, the city lights fading behind us, until there was nothing but darkness and pine trees. When we finally stopped, it was in front of a sprawling modern structure with floor-to-ceiling windows that somehow managed to look both welcoming and impenetrable. Victor had barely spoken during the drive, his attention fixed on the mirrors, his hand never far from his weapon. 2 other cars had followed us, more security, more shadows with guns and grim expressions. I was exhausted, terrified, and the baby wouldn't stop moving, as if it could sense my fear. This way, Miss Reeves. Victor guided me up stone steps to a heavy door that required both a key code and a fingerprint. The level of security should have made me feel safer. It didn't. Inside, the cabin was all exposed wood beams and expensive furniture, a fire already crackling in a stone fireplace large enough to stand in. The kitchen was stocked, the lights were on, and someone had left fresh flowers on the dining table. How long had Dmitri been planning this? Your room is upstairs, second door on the left, Victor said, checking his phone. Mr. Volkov will arrive within the hour. Until then, I'll be stationed outside your door. 2 men patrol the perimeter, 2 more watch the road. You're safe here. Safe. That word was losing all meaning. Victor? I caught his arm before he could leave. Marcus, his wife, his baby, do they know? Something almost like sympathy crossed his scarred face. Mr. Volkov will handle it. The family will be compensated, protected. It's not your concern. A man died today, a man whose child I'm carrying. It is my concern. With respect, Miss Reeves, Marcus Chen made choices that led to his death. You didn't pull the trigger. He gently extracted his arm from my grip. Rest. You look exhausted. He left before I could argue, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood floor. I climbed the stairs slowly, my body aching with a fatigue that went bone deep. The bedroom was beautiful, king-sized bed with soft white linens. Another fireplace, a bathroom with a tub large enough to swim in. Someone had already brought my clothes from the apartment, hanging them in the closet alongside new items with tags still attached. Maternity clothes, expensive ones. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the tears come. Marcus was dead. Killed because he'd stolen from the wrong people, slept with the wrong woman, existed in a world that didn't forgive mistakes. And his baby, my baby, would grow up never knowing its father, only knowing that he'd died violently in the streets while running from his sins. What kind of life was I bringing this child into? A sound from downstairs, the door opening, low voices conferring, made me freeze. Then footsteps on the stairs, measured and purposeful. Dmitri appeared in the doorway, and my breath caught. He looked like he'd been through hell. His coat was gone, his shirt untucked, blood spattering his white cuffs, but it was his eyes that held me. Dark, haunted, burning with something I couldn't name. You're hurt, I said, standing on instinct. It's not my blood. He stayed in the doorway, as if afraid to come closer. Are you all right? The baby? Fine. We're fine. I wrapped my arms around myself. Marcus is being handled. His body will be found in neutral territory, made to look like a robbery gone wrong. His family will receive life insurance. His debts will disappear. They'll never know the truth. The casual efficiency with which he discussed death made my stomach turn. Who killed him? The Antonov family. Russians like me, but old school. They don't approve of the legitimate businesses I've been building. They see it as weakness. He finally stepped into the room, and I could smell whiskey and gunpowder. They killed Marcus, knowing I'd claimed responsibility for you. It's a challenge. A test to see if I'm willing to go to war over a woman and a child that aren't even mine. Aren't even mine. The words hit like a physical blow. Then let me go, I said quietly. Let me disappear. They can't use me against you if I'm gone. His laugh was broken, almost desperate. Do you really think I could let you go now? You said you would. If I asked. That was before. The words exploded out of him, raw and furious. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands framing my face with a tenderness that contradicted his tone. That was before I spent 6 weeks trying to convince myself I was doing the right thing by staying away. Before I watched surveillance footage of you every night, just to make sure you were safe. Before I realized that the thought of you disappearing from my life is worse than any war the Antonovs could wage. My heart was hammering so hard, I thought it might break through my ribs. Dmitri, I'm obsessed with you, Mira. His thumb traced my cheekbone, his touch reverent. I've been obsessed since that hospital room, since I saw you broken and afraid and still fighting, since I saw that ultrasound and felt something I haven't felt in 10 years, the need to protect. To possess, to claim. You can't claim me. I'm not property. I know. You're a person, with choices and agency, and every right to tell me to go to hell. His forehead pressed against mine, and his voice dropped to a whisper. So tell me. Tell me to leave you alone, to arrange your disappearance, to forget you exist. Because if you don't say it now, I won't be able to let you go. I should have said it. Should have demanded my freedom, my independence, my right to make my own mistakes. But standing there with his hands on my face, his breath mixing with mine, his heart pounding against my palms where they'd somehow found their way to his chest, I couldn't form the words because some broken part of me wanted to be claimed, wanted to belong to someone who looked at me like I was something precious rather than something disposable. I don't want you to let me go, I whispered. His eyes closed, and a shudder ran through him. Mira, but I need you to understand something. I pulled back enough to meet his gaze. I'm not doing this because I'm desperate or afraid, or because you're providing for me. I'm doing this because when you look at me, I feel seen. When you touch me, I feel valuable. And when you're not around, there's a hollow in my chest that shouldn't exist after only 6 weeks. That hollow? His smile was sharp, dangerous. I've had it for 6 weeks too. Thought I was going insane. Maybe we both are. Probably. He kissed my forehead, soft and sweet. But I'm done fighting it, done pretending I can stay away. His hands slid down to my shoulders, my arms, finally settling on my waist where they bracketed the small bump of my stomach. This baby isn't mine biologically, but I want to be there for every appointment, every milestone, every moment. I want to be the one who holds your hair when you're sick, who puts together furniture at 3 a.m, who teaches them to be strong. And tears were streaming down my face now. Why? Because I'm falling in love with you. The words were simple, devastating, and I don't do anything halfway. I kissed him before I could think better of it, rising on my toes and pressing my lips to his with all the desperation and need that had been building for weeks. He made a sound low in his throat, his arms tightening around me, careful of my stomach, and kissed me back with a hunger that made my knees weak. It wasn't like kissing Marcus had been, rushed and fumbling and ultimately hollow. This was consuming, a fire that burned away everything except the two of us, tangled together in a room that smelled like pine and safety. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had gone dark with desire. We should stop, he said, but his hands didn't move from my waist. Probably. You're pregnant, exhausted. You've had a traumatic day, and I want you anyway. I traced the line of his jaw, feeling the scratch of stubble. I've wanted you since that hospital room, even though I knew I shouldn't. Even though you're dangerous and violent and completely wrong for me. His smile was pure sin. I am all of those things, but I'll be gentle with you, Solnishka. Always gentle with you. What does that mean? Solnishka? Little son. He kissed my nose, my cheeks, the corner of my mouth. Because you brought light into a life I'd convinced myself was meant to be dark. He picked me up then, carefully supporting my back, and laid me on the bed like I was something fragile. His hands moved over me with reverent slowness, unbuttoning my shirt, sliding off my jeans, until I was bare, except for simple cotton underwear. His gaze traveled over me, lingering on my stomach, and something fierce moved across his face. You're beautiful, he said. And it didn't sound like a line. It sounded like truth. I'm pregnant with another man's baby and covered in fading bruises. You're carrying life. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. He knelt beside the bed, pressing a kiss to my stomach, and I felt tears prick my eyes again. May I? I nodded, not trusting my voice. His hands were gentle as they explored, mapping the changes in my body with careful attention. When the baby kicked against his palm, he froze, wonder spreading across his face. Did you feel that? Yes, I whispered. That's the first time anyone else has felt it. I'll be here for all the rest. It sounded like a vow. Every kick, every movement, everything. He stood then, stripping off his shirt, revealing a body carved from violence. Scars, tattoos, hard muscle earned through survival rather than vanity. I traced a particularly vicious scar across his ribs. Knife fight, he said, 5 years ago. The man who gave it to me is dead. Does it hurt? Not anymore. He caught my hand, pressing it to his chest where his heart thundered. This hurts more, wanting you. Knowing I could lose you. You won't lose me. You can't promise that. My world. Then we'll navigate it together. I pulled him down to me, needing his weight, his warmth. No more staying away, no more pretending. If we're doing this, we're doing it completely. His kiss was answer enough. We made love slowly, carefully, his attention fixed on my comfort and pleasure. He worshipped every inch of my changing body, whispered words in Russian that sounded like poetry, and when I finally came apart in his arms, he held me like I was something sacred. Afterward, we lay tangled together, the fire casting shadows on the walls. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe, cherished. Home. "I need to tell you something," Dmitri said quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on my hip. "About the war that's coming." The peace shattered slightly. "Okay." "The Antonovs won't stop with Marcus. They'll escalate, try to draw me out. There will be violence, possibly a lot of it. I'll do everything in my power to keep you separate from it, but you need to be prepared." "Prepared how?" "Victor will teach you to shoot, basic self-defense, how to recognize threats." He pulled me closer. "I pray you'll never need those skills, but I won't leave you defenseless." The idea of holding a gun made me nauseous. But he was right. I couldn't stay ignorant in his world. "Will you kill them? The Antonovs?" "If necessary. No hesitation, no remorse. To protect you and the baby, I'd burn the entire city down." I should have been horrified, should have been running for the door. Instead, I pressed closer to his warmth and whispered, "Then we make sure it doesn't come to that." "We?" "You said we're in this together. That means I don't sit in a safe house while you fight alone." His arms tightened almost painfully. "You're not fighting anything except growing that baby. That's your only job. Dmitri." "No." Steel in his voice now. "This isn't negotiable. You stay safe. You stay hidden. You let me handle the darkness so you can stay in the light." I wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at me, and the baby was finally still, lulled by whatever hormones my body had produced during our lovemaking. "Promise me something," I murmured, already half asleep. "Anything. Promise you'll come back, every time, no matter what." His kiss pressed against my hair was soft as a prayer. "I promise, Solnishka. Always." I fell asleep in his arms, protected by a monster who loved me, carrying a child who would be born into violence, and somehow, impossibly, feeling like everything might actually be okay. Outside, men with guns patrolled the perimeter. The Antonov family planned their next move. And somewhere in the city, Marcus Chen's blood stained the pavement, a warning of the war to come. But in that moment, wrapped in Dmitri's embrace, I allowed myself to believe in the illusion of safety. It was the last peaceful night we'd have for a long time. 3 months changed everything. Winter settled over the mountains with brutal efficiency, turning the world into a snow-covered fortress. Inside the safe house, I grew larger, rounder, my body transforming into something I barely recognized. The baby moved constantly now, rolls and kicks that Dmitri would feel with his hand pressed to my stomach. Wonder lighting his dangerous eyes, the war he'd predicted came swiftly and viciously. I knew because he'd come back bleeding twice. Once with a bullet graze across his shoulder that he'd dismissed as nothing serious. Another time with bruised ribs and split knuckles that told stories he wouldn't share. But he always came back, always kept his promise. Victor taught me to shoot, his patience infinite as I learned to handle a gun with shaking hands. "You're a natural," he'd said after I'd hit 3 targets in a row. "Good instincts." I hated that I was good at it, hated that violence came so easily when my baby's life depended on it. Catherine visited twice, bringing books and gossip from the gallery, carefully avoiding any mention of the bodies that were turning up in the city. But I could see it in her eyes, the worry, the fear that one day Dmitri wouldn't come back. I felt it too, every time he left, every time I heard cars approaching, every time his phone rang in the middle of the night. It was early February when everything came to a head. I was 7 months pregnant, moving slowly through the cabin with one hand pressed to my aching back, when Dmitri burst through the door with an urgency that made my blood freeze. "Pack a bag. Now. We're leaving." What happened? They found the safe house. Don't know how, but Antonov's men are 20 minutes out. He was already moving through the room, grabbing weapons, checking magazines. Victor's bringing the car around. We have maybe 10 minutes. My hands shook as I threw clothes into a bag. Maternity jeans, sweaters, the ultrasound pictures I kept in my nightstand. 7 months pregnant and running from men with guns. The absurdity would have been funny if it wasn't so terrifying. Where are we going? The city. Ironically, it's safer there. More witnesses, more cameras, harder for them to make a move without consequences. He caught my arm as I stumbled, his grip gentle despite the urgency. I'm ending this tonight, Mira, one way or another. What does that mean? His smile was cold, lethal. It means I'm tired of running, tired of hiding you away. Antonov wants war? He'll get it. Gunfire erupted outside. Dmitri shoved me toward the bathroom. Get in the tub. Stay low. Don't come out until I tell you. Dmitri, now! I ran, my pregnant body moving awkwardly, and climbed into the cast-iron tub, curling as small as I could with my arms wrapped around my stomach. Through the bathroom door, I heard shouting, more gunfire, Victor's voice barking orders, then an explosion that shook the entire cabin. I screamed, unable to stop myself, and heard Dmitri roar my name. The bathroom door burst open. He was there, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, his gun smoking. We're going. Now. He pulled me from the tub with one arm, keeping his weapon raised with the other, and half-carried me through the cabin. Bodies lay in the entryway, men I didn't recognize, their blood staining the expensive hardwood. I tried not to look, tried not to think about the fact that Dmitri had killed them to protect me. Victor was outside, the car running, more of Dmitri's men providing cover fire as we ran through the snow. Bullets whizzed past, too close, too real, and I felt one tug at my coat sleeve. Get down! Dmitri threw me into the back seat and covered my body with his as Victor floored the accelerator. The car fishtailed on ice, then found traction, speeding down the mountain road with 3 other vehicles in pursuit. How many? Dmitri asked Victor, his weight still pinning me protectively. 6 cars. Maybe 20 men total. They committed everything to this. Good. Then when we eliminate them, Antonov will have nothing left. He finally shifted, pulling me upright, his hands frantically checking me for injuries. Are you hurt? Did anything hit you? I'm fine. We're fine. But my voice shook, and tears were streaming down my face. Dmitri, this is insane. We can't keep doing this. We won't have to. He kissed me hard, desperately. After tonight, it's over, I promise. The drive back to the city was a nightmare of speed and violence. Twice, pursuing cars got close enough that Victor had to perform evasive maneuvers that made me nauseous. Once, someone fired at us, bullets sparking off the armored exterior. But we made it. The city rose before us like a beacon. And as we crossed into Dmitri's territory, more cars appeared. His men, rallying to protect their boss. By the time we reached a nondescript building in the warehouse district, we had an entire convoy. Dmitri carried me inside despite my protests, taking me up to a 3rd-floor office with reinforced walls and minimal windows. He set me carefully on a leather couch. You stay here. Victor stays with you. No matter what you hear, you don't leave this room until I come back. Where are you going? To end this. He cupped my face, and his expression was agony. I love you, Mira. If something happens, don't. I grabbed his wrists. Don't you dare say goodbye to me. Then I'll say this. When this is over, I'm going to marry you. Going to give that baby my name. Going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me. He kissed me once more, pouring everything into it. Be ready to say yes, Solnishka. Then he was gone, and Victor was locking the door behind him, his expression grim. What's he going to do? I asked. Victor checked his weapon methodically. What he should have done 3 months ago. Challenge Antonov directly. Winner takes control of the territory. Loser dies. That's insane. It's not the medieval times. You can't just... In our world, it's the only way to end it without more bloodshed. He looked at me, and his scarred face softened slightly. Mr. Volkov is the best I've ever seen. He'll win. But even Victor couldn't hide the doubt in his eyes. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I paced the office, my hand pressed to my stomach, feeling the baby kick and roll as if it sensed my fear. Victor remained by the door, stoic and silent, his phone occasionally buzzing with updates he didn't share. Then, finally, the door opened. Dmitri stood in the doorway, and my heart stopped. He was covered in blood, his face, his hands, his clothes soaked with it. But he was walking, moving, alive. It's done, he said simply. I ran to him, as much as a 7-month pregnant woman could run, and threw my arms around him, not caring about the blood. He caught me, his grip tight enough to hurt, his face buried in my hair. "Antonov?" Victor asked quietly. "Dead." His lieutenant surrendered. "The territory is ours." Dmitri pulled back enough to look at me, and I saw exhaustion in every line of his face. "It's over, Mira. Really over." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." He pressed a hand to my stomach, and the baby kicked against his palm as if in greeting. "No more running, no more hiding. We can go home." Home. The apartment in the city, the gallery. A life that resembled normalcy. What about the police? The bodies are being handled. This war was between families. The authorities have been paid to look the other way, and without Antonov to contest it, my claim to the territory stands. He kissed my forehead. "You don't have to understand it. You just have to trust me." "I do." And I realized it was true. "I trust you completely." His smile was tired but genuine. "Then let's go home." 2 months later, I stood in a private hospital room, gripping Dmitri's hand hard enough to break bones, and screamed through another contraction. "You're doing beautifully, Mira," the doctor said from between my legs. "Just a few more pushes." "I can't. It hurts." "Yes, you can." Dmitri's voice was steady, his other hand stroking my hair. "You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." I looked at him. This man who'd killed for me, protected me, loved me through everything, and found the strength for one more push. The baby came in a rush of pressure and pain and relief, and suddenly there was crying, not mine, but high and indignant and perfect. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing a wriggling, bloody bundle on my chest. A healthy baby girl. I stared down at her in wonder. She had a shock of dark hair, Marcus's nose, and when she opened her eyes, they were the same gray as my own. "She's perfect," I whispered. Dmitri leaned over us both, his expression awed. "She's beautiful. Like her mother." The doctor cleared her throat. "Have you decided on a name?" I looked at Dmitri, and he nodded, giving me permission to choose. "Sophia," I said softly. "Sophia Volkov." His head snapped up, eyes wide. "Volkov? If you meant what you said, about giving her your name, about marrying me." I adjusted the baby in my arms, hardly believing she was real, was mine, was ours. "I'm saying yes, Dmitri, yes to everything." He kissed me then, gentle and reverent, mindful of our daughter between us. When he pulled back, there were tears on his cheeks. "I'll be the best father I can be," he promised. "I'll protect her, teach her, love her like she's my own blood. She is your own. Biology doesn't matter. You're her father in every way that counts." We stayed like that for a long moment, a family forged from violence and desperation and unexpected love. Before the nurse came to clean Sophia and check her vitals, Dmitri pulled out his phone and made a call. "Catherine, you can let everyone know. Mother and baby are healthy. Yes, I'll send pictures. Thank you." "Everyone?" I asked. "Victor, Catherine, my business partners, the people who matter." He sat on the edge of the bed carefully and took my hand. "I want to do this right, Mira. A real wedding, not just paperwork, something beautiful, where everyone can see that you chose me and I chose you back. I don't need a big wedding, but I need to give you one." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "You've had nothing but struggle and survival your whole life. Let me give you something beautiful." How could I argue with that? "Okay," I whispered. "A wedding, but small. Just the people we love." "Deal." Sophia was brought back to us, clean and swaddled and already sleeping. Dmitri held her with surprising confidence, his large hands cradling her tiny body like she was made of glass. "Hello, Sophia," he murmured in Russian, then English. "I'm your papa, and I promise you'll never know fear the way your mother did. You'll never be hungry or cold or afraid. You'll be loved and safe and free to be whoever you want to be." Watching him with our daughter, because she was ours, had been ours from the moment he decided to protect us. I felt something settle in my chest. This was my family. Unconventional, born from chaos, protected by violence, but mine. "I love you," I said, needing him to hear it. Both of you. My whole world. Dmitri looked up, and his smile was pure happiness. And you're ours. Forever, Solnishka, no matter what comes. 6 months later, I stood in a private garden behind one of Dmitri's properties, wearing a simple white dress that accommodated my post-pregnancy body, and listened to him say vows that made me cry. Sophia slept in Catherine's arms in the front row, oblivious to the fact that her parents were making everything official. Victor stood as Dmitri's best man, looking uncomfortable in a suit without a weapon visible. And when the officiant said, "You may kiss your bride," Dmitri pulled me close and kissed me like I was his salvation. Maybe I was. Because this man, this dangerous, powerful, violent man, had saved me just as much as I'd saved him. The reception was small, but perfect. Good food, better wine, people who genuinely cared about us celebrating our improbable love story. Later, as we slow danced under string lights, Sophia passed between guests who cooed over her. Dmitri whispered in my ear, "Any regrets?" Not a single one. Even though I'm a criminal, even though my world is dark, I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "You're my criminal. And your world isn't dark anymore, not with us in it." His smile was everything. No, not anymore. We danced until Sophia got fussy, until the guests began to leave, until it was just our small family in a garden that smelled like roses and new beginnings. This wasn't the life I'd imagined when I woke up in that hospital room, broken and afraid. It was so much better, because I'd found something I'd never had before, a place to belong, a person who saw me as more than I'd ever seen myself, and a love that had survived everything the world threw at it. Dmitri carried Sophia to the car. We were going back to the apartment, back to our life. And I followed, my heart full to bursting. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Volkov?" he asked, his eyes dancing. Mrs. Volkov, a name I'd never expected to carry, but wore with pride. "Always," I said, taking his free hand. "As long as home is wherever you are." He kissed me softly, our daughter between us, and the city lights glittered in the distance like a promise. We'd survived the darkness. Now we got to live in the light, together, forever, and that was more than enough.